Welcome, everybody. My name is Alec Cooley, and I'm going to be your moderator today for this program, which is entitled Recycling Under the Bright Lights, Diversion Logistics at Sporting Venues and Other Types of Venues. This is part of Busch Systems Green Thinking's webinar series. For those of you who are familiar, we do these programs roughly every other month on various topics that all in some way revert back to recycling, diversion, waste reduction. And I'll talk more about some of our other programs at the end of this one. But for this program today, we're going to be focusing, obviously, as the title implies, on venues, where concerts, sporting, different types of large group events that might include arenas, theaters, convention centers. Our case study today is going to focus specifically on stadiums, but as I think many of us know, a lot of these principles are pretty universal to different types of venues. This is building off of another program we did last year in June of 2021, where we had some additional case studies from other settings. And again, I'll point folks to that program for anyone who's interested later at the end of this one. For this program, we're going to change our format a little bit, and we're just going with a single spotlight case study of Austin FC, as opposed to having a multiple groups. And the idea is just to allow a little more time for more of an in-depth look and conversation around what Austin FC is doing. So with that, let me introduce Nick Oat, who is the Senior Director of Stadium Operations with Austin FC, the Major League Soccer team in Austin, Texas. For those of you who pay attention to the MLS, the team has been having a very good season. They're very successful, as is their zero waste program, as we're going to hear more in a few minutes. Nick Oat is has been with Austin FC for just over 2 years. Prior to that, he was involved with the facilities management with the Columbus Crew, another MLS team in Ohio. Nick's background in school, he earned a master's degree in sports management at Ohio State University. For this program today, Nick is going to do a brief presentation, walk through some slides, and give us some visuals about their program. And then the two of us are going to just have a discussion and go through a number of the points, looking holistically at the different aspects of their diversion program. And then for those who are interested, at the end of this program, this will probably run about 60 minutes, but at the end, we invite anyone who wants to stick on. My colleague Bryan is going to be doing a product demonstration to learn more about some of the outdoor recycling and trash bin products that Busch Systems offers. So again, that'll be at the end for those who choose to stay on afterward. We will have everybody's lines muted just to keep down background noise, but to the extent that we can, we want to encourage folks to participate and be engaged with this program. So I think most folks are probably pretty familiar with the functionality on Zoom at this point, but if you have specific comments, I encourage sharing your experience as we're going through some of these topics. If there's an insight, something that you've done, lesson learned that you think is relevant, I encourage you to share that through the chat with all the other participants and attendees, and see if we can't get a little bit of a discussion going within the chat function. If you have a question specifically for Nick or for our discussion that you'd like me to read out loud, go ahead and type that into the question and answer function. So again, just to reiterate, we're trying to keep those separate. If questions go into the chat, I may or may not see them. So if you want them to be read out loud specifically, please put it into the Q&A section. We'll have a couple live polls as we go through the discussion, just to get a pulse on attendance and who is doing what at their facilities. So look for those as we move forward. And I'll point out that the recording of today's program, as well as the slide deck that Nick is going to talk through, both of those will be posted online to the Busch Systems website within the next couple of days. And we will send out an email to everyone who is registered, pointing you to find those afterward. So with that, let me go ahead and hand it over to Nick to talk us through the program at Austin FC.
Thanks, Alec. Getting a little echo there. Sorry. Yeah, as Alec said, I'm Nick Oat. I'm with the Austin FC. We were the 27th team in Major League Soccer. We just joined the league last year, last June, which feels like a lifetime ago, but really only been operating now for 14 months. We flip to the next slide. We got a couple photos of Q2 Stadium. It's a soccer specific stadium, about 20,500 seats that just, again, we just opened doors for the first time in June of last year. We've hosted a full season of MLS soccer, going on a season and a half now. We've hosted the US women's team, the US men's team here a handful of times, and just hosted a rugby event. We had a full stadium concert earlier this year. So kind of as Alex hinted, it's not just a soccer stadium, and we're not operating just with soccer in mind. So we're, you know, tailoring all of our operations, waste diversion and otherwise, to kind of fit a variety of different things and a variety of different crowds. One thing that we'll kind of touch on as we go, I think it's been important for us, given that we are such a new building, to be adaptive and to understand that we aren't going to get everything right at the beginning. We learned that very quickly with some things. We learned that over time with some other things. And here we are again, just over a year since opening, and we're still, you know, implementing new policies. We're still changing policies that we came up with when we opened. And I think the waste diversion and all of our operations surrounding that are a key part of that. We're continuing to adapt as we go, with you know, a few key points in mind that we'll hit down the road here. Next slide. So one thing we always like to emphasize, you know, when talking about our stadium as a whole is sustainability. Again, beyond just waste diversion, was something that mattered a whole lot to us from the beginning. It was one of 5 pillars that we used to even design the stadium before anything was built. Just through the design phase, you know, alongside. It was important to us that the building was authentic to Austin. It was important that it was a fan-centric building, a tech-forward building. It was important that the building was something that could be operated year-round. And right alongside that was making sure we were designing and operating a building that was eco-friendly. So, you know, again, that goes beyond waste diversion. We had, there were conversations early on with the city of Austin, you know, with their Department of Transportation and, you know, the water and energy and COTA, who runs all the public transit. It was kind of a top to bottom process to make sure we were checking all the boxes for really anything sustainable, because we didn't want this to be any sort of negative impact on the city or negative impact on the environment specifically. We were hoping through the design and now into operations that this would be a net positive, something that would be a benefit to the community. And kind of to that point, through the initial stages of the project, it was a requirement from the city and others that the building be at least LEED silver, to kind of show our investment as an organization. And this is from the very top through our ownership group. We were able to, you know, incorporate certain design elements and through our operations. And we actually went, you know, above and beyond that guideline and became LEED Gold certified, which is something we're super proud of and something we love to highlight as again, evidence that none of this is really just a check the box type thing. This is, you know, sustainability and all of these things are super important to us, and things that we want to, you know, be on the forefront of, and not just, you know, put as a footnote in what we are as a stadium and as a club. One of the things that I think we'll talk about a lot through this presentation is how important it is to have, you know, partners and support to get some of these things right. Again, going back to the very early stages of this club's existence, you know, we were choosing corporate partners and, you know, having conversations about who the club would align with, and sustainability was a key portion of those conversations. We wanted to make sure that we were aligning with companies and with partners that could help us, further those objectives. So, Yeti is our official sustainability partner. We have Schneider Electric, who has a lot of sustainability initiatives. Levy Restaurants, who's our food and beverage partner. They are right alongside us with a lot of these initiatives. And Texas Disposal Systems, TDS, who we'll talk a lot about today, has been with us from virtually the beginning, developing these waste diversion processes and helping us move towards zero waste. And I think the thing that means the most to me as we're dealing with these outside vendors and partners is that a lot of this is just like our pillars of stadium design. A lot of this is more than just PR for them. It's things that they want their organization to be known by, just like we do at Austin FC and Q2 Stadium, and they've helped us tremendously along the way to help further theirs and our objectives. To kind of jump into some of the operation strategies that we've used, we'll kind of go A to Z here and sort of go front of house and back of house through everything that we do here at Q2 Stadium. But this whole process started for us with what you see on the screen here. It started with first making sure that whatever we wanted to do from a waste diversion standpoint was going to be achievable, and that starts with are the materials in our building going to be distributed and purchased to a point where we can divert the amount of waste that we want. So we went through a few different stages and a few different plans as to how much we wanted to try to compost, how much recyclable material we wanted to include in our packaging. And we again, with the support of Levy and Texas Disposal Systems, we landed in a place where we were, decided early on we were going to be pretty aggressive with our diversion plan, and that meant, purchasing almost exclusively compostable material. So that's cups, plates, forks, knives, bowls, like pretty much anything you can think of. Short of your cans and bottles, obviously, is in our stadium is compostable. So I guess the photo on the slide there shows kind of a small setup of things that we have in the building, and that goes from our main concessions, it goes into our clubs, it goes into our suites. These are all things that just about everywhere you are in the building, you're going to be handed compostable products with your food and beverage. And that wasn't an easy process. We went back and forth trying to decide what we should do, what we could afford to do, all the things that go into that. But eventually, again, landed with a plan that was aggressive, but something that we were proud to take on. And from there, we talked with a number of different stakeholders on receptacles specifically. So how many did we need around the stadium? What type of receptacles did we need around the stadium? Where did we want to put them? And these were all, several different folks that we needed input from to get that right. And then to keep up with that, it's a step further to make sure that we have the right supplies from a housekeeping operation standpoint, make sure we have the right receptacle liners, make sure we have the right equipment to move the waste and compost and recycling throughout the building. And these were all real early on, call it 8 to 10 months before we even opened the building for the first time, before substantial completion through the construction process. We were having these conversations, trying to make sure we were setting ourselves up for success. And then from there, obviously, we think we set ourselves up as well as we could, but then you open the gates and 20,000 people come in, and you quickly learn that it's maybe not as easy as it seems. So we understand that you know, again, bringing 20,000 people into the building, it's going to be a challenge to get those folks to behave and act in a way that aligns with these certain objectives, specifically waste diversion, understanding that ultimately it's up to the fans in our building to make decisions and to help us out to get us to these goals. So we've done a lot of things from a signage standpoint. All of our trash bins have multiple points of signage on them to try to guide folks in the right direction. We've worked closely with Texas Disposal Systems, who on multiple occasions has set up activations like the one you see in the picture there to engage directly with the fans. You know, this setup here and others that we've done, this happens right outside our busiest gate. So a gate that we take 40-something%, almost half of the people that come into the building come through this gate, and all of them are walking right past this Texas Disposal System setup, and they're, you know, hopefully interacting with those folks and hearing about what TDS does and specifically what TDS does for us. And if that's their, you know, last interaction before coming through our gates, I think that helps us hammer home these messages that these are things that we're trying to accomplish and things that we can rely on them to help us accomplish. And then once they're in the building, obviously we're still, as best we can throughout the stadium, trying to hammer home these points. Again, the signage on the receptacles is prominent, but a cool thing that Texas Disposal Systems did for us, and again, they did it right from the beginning, which was great, but they developed a program that they called Trash Goalies. I know it's maybe not a unique operation. I know other venues around the country have done similar things, but they were able to do this for us from the opening match. They had folks stationed around the concourse at our eco stations at the point of decision for our fans, making that decision for our fans or guiding them towards that decision that we needed them to make. They're there. They know what materials are in the building. They know which materials need to go to which receptacle. And they were, again, nice enough and kind enough and so helpful throughout that process to help get us off on the right foot. It was something that meant a lot for us to try to get right from the beginning, because I think kind of a double-edged sword, right? We had folks coming into our building for the first time. We didn't necessarily know what to expect, but they also didn't have any preconceived notions of how the building operates or what goes where. So we were able to try to drive that behavior right from the beginning, and having these trash goalies and the support from TDS was crucial in that. And then another thing that we do every match, we have a video that plays on the scoreboard before every match. It's a video that we like to point out plays right alongside our emergency egress messaging. So it's something that we love to emphasize, something that's super important to us, and we can play it here.
When it comes to diverting waste, Texas Disposal Systems is the ultimate team player. That's why you'll see eco stations throughout the stadium. All concession items thrown away at the stadium, including food, eco utensils, napkins, and plates, can be composted. If your item has the eco logo, it's compostable, and almost all other waste can be recycled. You can join our team by playing your part. Make sure your waste gets properly disposed of. Texas Disposal Systems, the official waste and recycling partner of Austin FC.
So again, just to emphasize the importance of these partnerships and these relationships, like this is obviously a video that is good brand awareness for TDS. It's
when it comes to diversion,
it helps us so much to have that messaging. Again, where it is in the run of show, it's something that people can't, or at least shouldn't, ignore. It has prime real estate in our inventory of pre-match messaging. So, hopefully it's something that folks that are here more than once, they see more than once, and they really start to get some of these things ingrained in their minds and the way they move around our building. So I think the next key important part for us is making sure that we get all of our back of house operations correct, making sure that we have everything aligned back there, because we make obviously a huge effort to make sure that fans are educated and fans are helping us out getting things into the right receptacles. But it's also crucial for us, obviously back of house, to finish that step or finish that process and make sure that things are making it into the right dumpster. So we've done some staff education things, again with the help of TDS, who has put together and executed some trainings for our staff. They were a key part of developing some of this signage. And with this back of house signage, it was important to me and important to our operations to try to get this messaging at really every point of decision for our staff. So at any point where they were going to have to put a bag in one spot or another, or take a trash tote to a certain spot, we wanted to make it as obvious as possible where that needs to go. I think simplicity and efficiency are kind of the name of the game for housekeeping in general, but specifically with these waste diversion things, it is so easy to just put a bag in the first spot you see. So we're doing as best we can, or trying to anyway, and I think we can still improve in some of these areas, but hoping to make it as simple as possible for the staff. And with that, again, came decisions early on to make sure that we were purchasing the right equipment in terms of compactors and open top dumpsters. We have a cardboard baler on site. These were all things that were crucial that we tried to get right early on to make sure that the infrastructure of our building was set up as such to execute some of these things. So we went back and forth deciding which compactors made sense for us in terms of size and overall capacity. Again, the cardboard baler was something that we were sure we wanted to implement to make sure that we were getting that stream of waste right. And then ultimately it comes down to enforcement with our back of house staff, accountability and kind of hammering these things home over and over again to make sure that we aren't putting in all this effort to get the diversion right on the front end, only to have it fall apart with our back of house operations because things aren't set up properly or folks weren't trained properly. And it's kind of an ongoing process. It's something we have to continually talk about, continually chat about in our trainings and our briefings. But it's important that it's not just a one-time conversation to make sure that we're getting things right. And then just to highlight some of our year one and into year two results, again, worth pointing out that we're still constantly adapting our policies. We're still striving for improvement, knowing that we've only been open for a little over a year. We're going to learn things and figure things out as we go. But that being said, in 2021, we were able to divert 71% of all of our waste, over 300,000 pounds of recycling, compost, and cardboard that was diverted from the landfill, which was a number we were super excited about. Again, without really having anything to benchmark or knowing what we were capable of, to land over 70% in year one was something we were really proud of, and we're hoping to improve on that in year two. We're kind of hovering right around that number so far this year, but we track this data in a couple different ways, but I try to track results specifically tied to our full stadium events and mostly Austin FC events, and all but one of our full stadium events this year, we've had over 80% diversion in year to date. And I think our last match actually, or 2 matches ago, we were at our highest of the year. We diverted 93% of our waste in that match, which again goes to show that we've got a lot of folks that are buying into this, both internal and external, and we're seeing the results of that both in year one and now into year two. And then to highlight some kind of long-term goals, the city of Austin has an objective for the city as a whole to be completely zero waste by 2040. So, that's something we're keeping our eye on. It's something we're hoping to work towards because, like I said at the beginning, it's something that we want to align with the city. We want to align with this community on these things and make sure that we aren't being a negative impact on their goals. And I think based on our early results, we're moving in the right direction. That last 10-20% is going to be difficult. It's a lot more difficult than the first 70%, I think we're finding, but it's something that again, a challenge that we're taking on, a challenge that we're proud to take on and excited to see where we end up. I think that's the last slide. Throw it back to Alec.
Great, thanks, Nick. That was a great overview. A lot of information there. You guys obviously have an excellent program, and we'll get into some of the details. Before we do that, before we go into some of the Q&A, let me again just a reminder. We have a number of questions that are coming in, so thanks. We have sort of an order that we're going to go through our discussion and touching on different topics. So some of these questions I'm going to hold on to and just drop in as we come to those respective topics. But again, as a reminder for anyone who has questions, go ahead and put them into the Q&A function, and also encourage folks just to share your experience or any insights, other observations, to interact with other webinar attendees in the chat function. So, and before we go into the discussion, we do have a live, let's do our first live poll. If you can pull this up, Marissa. The question, when you see this on your screen, what activities are you currently doing at your facility? If, assuming you are at a venue of some form, you can go ahead and just mark down which of these are activities that you are doing right now. Public facing bins, recycling, I'm assuming most folks will have that, but if you're doing collection of food organics from front of house, compostable packaging, there's a newer trend that we're just starting to see using reusable cups packaging for concession sales. Still kind of an emerging thing from it's opposed to single use, but if that applies to your situation, go ahead and fill those out. While we're letting people fill that out, I'll throw out a couple questions to start off. Nick, a couple to start off. Morgan had a question. Are you considering zero waste certification, either true or something? You mentioned that the facility itself is LEED, but are you looking at a zero waste certification?
Yeah, it's something we've talked about for sure. We haven't made any progress or taken any action, but we've got some goals for that. I think we're trying to level set and really understand what we're capable of long term, as we decide what to do from a certification standpoint. But it is something, again, that we're proud of, and something we want to start to broadcast even more than we already are. So I think getting these certifications is on our list to do for sure.
Great. Yeah, and for those of you who are not familiar, there are different programs. The one I'm most myself familiar with is the True certification that does individual facilities. But another question came in, just a little more nuance on the diversion rate that you decided, the 71 for 2021 and closer to 80% this year. Is that just working off of actual material recycled or composted, or does that incorporate any reuse or waste prevention activities as well?
That's strictly the amount of compostable and recyclable material that we collect. Those are numbers that the Texas Disposal provides for us, so they understand obviously like how much of our material goes to their recycling facility, how much goes to their compost facility, and how much hits their landfill. So it's just based on amount of material we're collecting.
Got it. And we didn't really get too much into this with your presentation, but are there programs, initiatives you're doing specifically around the waste prevention side, or reuse, even with back of house or other settings?
Yeah, I think that's an area that we could we could dive deeper into in our operations. I don't know that we've implemented a ton of attention to that sort of thing. I think it's always something that we chat about with our F&B team and with others to make sure that we're choosing packaging and things like that are as reductive as possible, so that we're not bringing too much into the building that we can't handle. But I think that is something for sure that as we look to the future, we can start to go further down or further up rather the supply chain and make sure that we're checking the boxes there.
Yeah. Good. Certainly, there are a lot of challenges that we can talk about later. How do you move away from single use and some of the basic expectations folks have with facilities and the costs involved? But so just to close out this live poll, as one would expect, the vast majority of folks do have a public-facing recycling systems, but it looks like 38% or so have compostable packaging from concession sales, but only about 33% are actually doing food collection from front of house. So interesting results here. And Marissa, if you can go ahead, and I'll let you turn that off and we'll continue on. So I'm going to turn off the screen share for the moment. And just jump into some of the discussion. So I've got a number of, questions myself to start off. One of the great advantages that you have is that you were able to be there, and a lot of these conversations about how to set up the program were happening before the facility was actually built and designed, and you were able to actually influence that. And obviously for those who are working at, we'll call them a legacy facility, one of the challenges can just be, how do you build your operations around systems and infrastructure that was not intended to necessarily have multiple streams and all that. But I'm curious, from your experience, Nick, are there specific lessons learned, practical advice you would offer for somebody who is in that position of being able to influence the infrastructure at the outset? What are some of the things you were able to take advantage of?
Yeah, I think to provide a little bit of context, I joined the club just under a year before we opened the stadium for the first time. So, I jumped into that process and like I said, was immediately trying to, make sure we were setting ourselves up for success there. So I think the biggest, advice I would give, or at least some direction, is to make sure that accessibility of your dumpsters is top of mind. So we've got all of our trash operations, so to speak, are on our event level. So we've got 2 compactors and an open top dumpster on event level, but they're all accessed via a trash chute on the main concourse level. So we've got, which is a vast majority of our waste, of our compost and recycling, is being collected on that main concourse. So it's a huge help for us for our staff to be able to easily access those trash chutes, be in and out, easily get things to the dumpster, and then get right back to work to, from a just aesthetic standpoint around the stadium, make sure that we don't have trash cans overflowing, et cetera. But it makes it a lot easier for them to kind of take the time to make the right decisions that we need them to make. I'll say it's not, we haven't been without our struggles. We were built for 2 compactors. In a perfect world, given that we are a 3-stream facility, we would probably have a 3rd, something that we're working on and looking at kind of long-term as a capital project. But that was sort of a product of us not really finalizing what our plan was until later in the process, just because of all the back and forth and all the conversation that had to be had as to what we were capable of. So just to put a bow on that, our 2 compactors, one is for compost, one is for recycle. and we take all of our landfill waste to an open top dumpster. And that presents some challenges. It's a little more difficult to access than our compactors on match day. But it was crucial for us to do it that way if we were going to go as aggressive as we were with the compost and recycling specifically.
We had a question from Andrew, going back to the stadium design as well. You mentioned having LEED Gold. What were there specific steps that you followed, or what sort of strategies to get at that next level from a LEED Silver up to the Gold?
Yeah, it was a long, detailed and involved process with a lot of folks. For anyone who is or isn't familiar with LEED, they'll provide a scorecard, so to speak, that's essentially a roadmap to getting the points for required for each of these levels of certification. It wasn't, I don't know that it was anything that any like specific route we took. It was something that we knew we wanted to strive for, and then as we're going through the design process, I think it's, you realize like, well, we could do this, and this. We could, maybe stretch ourselves a little bit and do this, and this. I think it was more of a, as things kind of fall into place in the design process, you figure out, where you can extend yourself. You figure out, where you may have to cut back and find points elsewhere. It's the key to that, though, was to just always be tracking towards that LEED Silver and eventually that LEED Gold level, so that we were making decisions and the design team was making decisions that were going to allow us to check these boxes and execute what we needed to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's talk a little bit about the actual bin infrastructure and the collection streams that you have in place. So as you were showing, for the front of house, you've got a 3-stream process, which I know from anecdotally is more or less matches what is the standard around the city of Austin. Can you talk about the relationship with the city and what type of coordination was made around both just coming up with a standardized system that would harmonize with the cities, but other steps working with the city and how that helped to with the design of the program?
Yeah, like I said, from the very beginning, we were working with the city of Austin, specifically with their sustainability department, to make a lot of decisions around stadium design. We had conversations specific to waste diversion. We had conversations specific to a lot of different things. But I think the story to tell for us, and I don't know how transferable this is to other markets, but this city as a whole is, this idea, the idea of composting and waste diversion isn't foreign to anybody who goes really anywhere in the city. So folks coming into our stadium, I think there's almost an expectation that we are meeting these diversion requirements and diversion objectives. If they're going to a brewery or a mall or something down the street that has compost containers everywhere, and then they walk into our stadium and they can't compost anything, it's going to be a bad look for us. So we were a key driving factor to developing our program was to make sure, like you said, that we were aligned with the city, that we were aligned more specifically with our fans' expectations. And I joke a lot that we'll get comments on our post-match surveys from season ticket holders that say, well, I had to search too hard for a recycle container, or why are there single-use plastics in the building, and things like that. That like it's a great problem to have. It's another level of accountability that I think ends up as a positive for us. But it's something that we were expecting, and something that we were trying to align with from the beginning.
Yeah, that's an enviable position to have fans creating, the ground up pressure for these programs. That's great. around, it's sort of a perennial question I hear is when you're setting up infrastructure, how do you know how many bins that you need? Where's the placement? How do you arrange that's where bins are going and all in relation to fans?
Yeah, we use, that was another process that was iterative. It was more elaborate than I think maybe some of the people I was working with wanted it to be. I remember specifically before construction was even over, I had a member of our project management team, walk the building with me and a few folks from my team to literally try and place these from the beginning. We use the old Disney World model of 30 steps or 29 steps between each container. So he and I and a few other people, we literally walked through the construction site in our hard hats and vests, 30 steps at a time, marking a map to say, well, here's where we need a container, here's where we need a container, here's where we need a container. But I think what's unique about a stadium environment is the flow of people is maybe easy to predict, but isn't necessarily consistent in every area of the building. So, at any given time during our match, or more specifically before our match, our North Concourse might have a huge percentage of the people in the building on that concourse because we have a lot of concessions and restrooms, and that's where our two main gates are. So, making sure as the building, goes through our operating phase for years, and we try to track those things. We say, well, if everybody's going to be on this north end, maybe we need, 2 trash cans or 2 eco stations per 30 steps. But that's, again, something that we're always adapting towards. It's something that we're watching during events to make sure that we're setting up for success. And again, something that our fans are helping us with, because if they don't have a place to put their trash, then we hear about it.
And you see the piles.
Yeah.
And so obviously some of the material you're getting through fans bringing them directly to the bins, but I assume there's a fair amount of material that just stays in the stands on the ground. What is your system for sweeping or cleaning up the stadium itself after games?
Yep. So I do like to tell this story because I think it's something really cool that our supporters do. We've got a section of 3,300 supporters at the south end of our stadium. As soon as the match is over, they clean up their own sections. It's something that I think is maybe common in European soccer, or European football rather, but something that they've adapted as a process of their own. So my housekeeping staff hands off recycle and compost and waste liners to them, and they go through 5 sections of our stadium and pick up all of the cans, bottles, et cetera, before they leave. It's really cool to see. They are right alongside us with these diversion objectives, so they understand what we're trying to accomplish. But beyond that, our housekeeping team will go through the stands. I think it's a little bit of a challenge to find that balance between kind of efficiency and attention to detail. I think in a perfect world we would send an entire group through the stands once to pick up all the recycling, and then another group to go through the stands to pick up all the compost, and then another group to come through and kind of sweep up your popcorn, peanut shells, et cetera. I think a lot of times we're only going through twice, and we're trying to sort as we go, which I think our group is pretty good at. We haven't seen a ton of contamination. Obviously, all of that ends up at a sorting facility, so that Texas Disposal operates and they sort there. So, but we try to get it as right as possible, understanding that if you're asking a group of people to go through the stands 3-4 times, then there's a point of diminishing returns there. But I think we've found a good balance, and we're seeing good results from it.
Yeah. How about contamination from the actual bins, the material that makes it into those? Do you have an handle on how much for both recycling and organic streams?
Yeah, it's again something that I've talked with Texas Disposals about. We're trying to set up actually later this month or maybe next month a more thorough and complete waste audit to really understand what that looks like. My hope is that we can, I'll take myself and a few folks from my team out to their facilities. We'll watch them dump one of our dumpsters and get a firsthand look as to what that looks like. But in terms of actual contamination to date, TDS tracks all of that. They tell us when we have a dumpster that is too contaminated to go to a compost or recycle site, and they're tracking all that. And I've been out to their sorting facility. It's an incredible facility. They're sorting all of the recycle and things that come in to make sure that contamination isn't excessive, but B, isn't contaminating their landfills or their recycling facilities. So I hope to have better exact numbers once we do that full audit, and I think that's also something that we'll plan to use as training material, right? We can see in real time that we're dumping a recycle dumpster, but there's 5 green compost bags in there. It's something I can take back to my housekeeping team and say, this is what we're seeing. These are the actual results of the decisions we're asking you to make, and here's how we can improve.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess moving and talking more about the back of house operations, we've had a number of questions come in specific to how that's organized. And one is just a question about where the management responsibilities are. What does the organization chart look like for the back of house operations and how that's organized?
So the key to that, I think, for us is that we're the back of house operations is such a kind of a widespread set of teams, right? It's our housekeeping team, it's the food and beverage team, it's third-party contractors who are in here doing work that are going to have waste to dispose of. It's our facilities team, it's our groundskeeping team. So I think each one of those individual teams obviously has a head of that team and specific supervisors that we've tried to get our objectives hammered home to. I think it's something specifically on the housekeeping side that I manage that I would love to kind of improve on to have more stakeholders in terms of supervisors during these matches and during these other events, because right now we've got our normal supervisor team that's kind of supervising everything that goes on from a housekeeping standpoint. It's not always practical to expect them to also monitor whether the bags are getting to the right dumpsters. So I think it's something, again, that can come with training and with more development from this development of this program, rather, that I would love to just have a position on match day within our housekeeping team. Here's our waste diversion supervisor who's making sure the teams have the right bags in their supply closets, making sure the right gondolas are going to the right places, making sure the bags are making it to the right dumpsters. And I know Levy, our food and beverage partner specifically, has done maybe a better job at assigning specific responsibilities. They have a couple people on their team actually that are dedicated to these sorts of things, and that's super helpful to us to kind of have someone to go to, someone to talk to directly, who we know is on board with us, we know is tracking all the same things as us. And I think if we can get that sort of setup, that sort of structure with all of the key stakeholders here, then it's only going to make us better in the long run.
Yeah. I know when we were chatting previous one of our earlier calls when we were planning this, we were talking about how with your back of house staff, there's almost the same imperative that you have with the public facing. It's how do you design a system that is just sort of intuitive, that you're not asking a lot of interpretation and having to memorize and really understand the system, but to the extent you can, sort of designing things, color coding the dumpsters and all the bags, coming up with a whole scheme that helps the back of house workers also just to intuitively know here's how material flows through the system.
Yeah, like I said, simplicity is kind of the name of the game there. It's understanding that a lot of our match day staff is a transient staff. It's folks who, hopefully they're working, match after match after match, but the reality is that sometimes we might get half of that workforce that's never been here before. So I think once we start to develop a better, supervisor structure for that only becomes easier. But you're right. In the meantime, it's like I said, at every decision point for those folks, we want to have some guidance. We want to have some signage. We want to have something there that's taking the guesswork out of it. So it's signage at our trash chutes. It's signage on event level at our dumpsters to help them make the right decision. And I think a key part of that and something that I try to implement as best I can is making sure that these folks that are doing that work are feeling, seen and appreciated and that their opinions are feeling heard, because, I think obviously it's not the most glamorous job that goes on in our stadiums on a match day, but these are folks that are so crucial to the success of this program that may have great ideas as to how we can improve. So we've got a handful of core staff housekeepers that work in our building every day. And I think, those are guys that I always try to make a point to talk to. I think there's guys on that team that are super well liked and well appreciated within our full-time operations staff, because I think it's really important to make those folks feel invested in the operation as a whole. Because again, it is just so easy for someone in that position to make a decision that's easy or quick, but might not be exactly what we're trying to go for. So we try, as hard as we can to hear those folks out, to make them understand that we're here to support them and help them help us, so to speak.
Yeah. A couple of folks have put in questions about bagging. Your front of house bins are all bagged. Does that just go straight into the system, or do your back of house staff rip bags open? Is that a concern with TDS? Yeah,
we don't rip bags open. It was something we talked with TDS about early on. Our green bag, our compostable bags are compostable, so they can go right in that stream. I think the recycle bags have to get sorted on the back end at their facilities, but it was something that we called out early on. Like, again, we don't want to set them up in a bad spot where they're getting way too much contamination at their facility, but they've been so great to work with from the beginning. They understand that operationally, the challenge for us to have to cut every bag and dispose of those bags separately is a lot for us to take on. So again, they were willing on their side to take that on and to get that figured out at their sorting facility. And it's been a huge help for us, because having our staff have to cut all those bags, given just the nature of how we're cycling through bags and gondolas in our trash chute room would really slow us down and ultimately affect the fan experience. Whether it had a long-term effect on the waste diversion or not, we could probably keep up with it. But again, I think the result of that would have been trash cans overflowing on the concourse or other things not getting done around the building.
Yeah. I know a lot of folks have looked at, are there ways that you could transition to just having a bagless collection system and having rigid liners that can somehow go into a system? And I've seen some universities be able to do kind of a closed system with reusable bags, but that is a whole other level of logistics that can be real tough to do.
Yeah, I think with all of the beer and everything else that we sell on a match day, imagining all of that just going into our receptacles would soccer kind of lends itself to that, with the supporter culture and the things that they like to do during the matches. So it would be hard for us to keep up with. It would be great if we were able to do it, but I think just given the volume of waste and things that we're collecting at one time, it would be hard for us to really execute that.
Yeah, fair enough. So shifting over, talking a little bit more about the concession and the composting side. So all of the packaging in place right now is compostable. How does that extend to other pre-packaged materials? Like are there sales for chips or other containers where you don't necessarily have the same control? And how do you address that?
Yeah, and that's something long term that I would love for us to get away from as we start to move to true zero waste. But yeah, those chip bags and a couple other things that we have in our concession stand, that's truly the reason that we even maintain that landfill stream right now, or things like that those things are obviously coming from outside companies that we don't have a ton of control over the packaging of. And this is to the earlier point that we talked about, waste reduction and other things that we can do to control the end results. I think starting to dig deeper and go further in that supply chain to figure out what can we do, what can we sell in our stadium that really helps us get to true zero waste. I think it's a long-term goal of ours, but it wasn't something that we've been able to take on right away.
Yeah, is that true as well for like condiment packaging and all? Going to bulk dispensers, is that we're in that process?
Yeah, the condiments specifically, our original plans were to have bulk dispensers. I think COVID kind of took us away from that to a more individual packaging environment. I think that's something hopefully down the road we can start to transition out of, but it's an unfortunate thing because it's really all that's holding us back from being able to go just about zero waste now. But I think we've done a good job of educating folks. They understand that when they have that chip bag, it is supposed to go to the landfill container, and it's not causing us a ton of trouble in terms of contamination, but it is something that as we look long term, we'd love to be able to move away from that altogether.
Yeah. Good. With the few minutes we have left, let's talk a little bit more about the engagement and actually engaging with fans. I love the video, and kudos. I know it's not always that simple. Even if you have a good video, getting the leadership buy-in to actually put it up on the big screen where that could be competitive for other messaging. But that seems like a really good way of engaging folks. I also like the system that you have in place with the Texas Disposal Systems staff actually tabling and having the goalies, the trash goalies at the bins. My question around that is, I've seen other facilities do that. Ohio State famously has done that in the past. Have you found that having trash goalies next to bins, does doing that a couple times up front have a long-term effect that means that you don't necessarily need to have them there every single game, or to get that benefit, reducing contamination, getting a support, is it necessary to have them sort of game in, game out?
Yeah, I think first part of that is, again, a ton of credit goes to the folks at TDS who have been working with us, the activations outside, the development of our signage, the trash goalie operation that they came up with and kind of drove for us, and the pre-match video too was kind of their brainchild and something that they worked through with us. It's something that we could have had these plans and operations and goals, but without their support and their willingness to kind of go above and beyond the requirements of the partnership to help us get there, allowed us to develop the videos, allowed us to have the signage, and allowed us to do this trash goalie operation that, yeah, to your point, it was super important for us to do it right at the beginning, because like I said, we were trying to drive this behavior from the very beginning. But yeah, it's not something we do every match. It's something we started to hear from the trash goalies. I think 2 or 3 matches in our first season that they were like, sometimes we're just standing here because people already know what to do. I think I saw a question in the Q&A that asked what percentage of our fans are season ticket holders. So, we're super fortunate that 3/4 of the people in our building, 75%, are season ticket holders. So it's a lot of repeat visitors. It's a lot of repeat customers who they came to the game once, they saw the trash goalies, they came back again, they saw the trash goalies, they came back again for the 3rd time, and they probably didn't need the trash goalies because they're already used to getting things to the right spot. So, we haven't abandoned it by any means. It's something that we have still done on occasion as just kind of a refresher for folks in the building. But yeah, you nailed it. It's something that we heard directly from them. We heard directly from TDS that they were seeing that people were catching on, and which means, only easier for us, but it was exciting to hear that, because that was ultimately what we're trying to do is drive that behavior to the point where we can kind of be hands off and hope that folks are making decisions that help us out.
Yeah, I think just to underline that point, I think when we talk about behavior, one of the big influencing factors is having culture. It's the social norming. It's what are your peers doing, and when you have a strong culture, that has its own reinforcing quality that helps to motivate others to participate. But what if you don't have that culture? What if that isn't the norm? The norm is putting things in the trash. How do you overcome that? And what I like about what you're doing is you're approaching this from a number of different angles. So you're having people actually, the goalies next to the bins for those games that you do that, but also having the tabling, just the ability to just interact with folks, having the messaging on the board, social media, other ways of engaging and just communicating around sustainability. We know from behavior that when people hear a message coming from multiple directions, that has more of an impact, and collectively, I could see where that helps to build that culture and that expectation that starts to be its own self-generating dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It's something that, I guess my biggest piece of advice there would be to try to bring in as many people as you can from the leadership side of things, understanding that there's going to be some people who maybe don't get it, maybe don't care about it, but if you can kind of, build a core group of folks. For us, it's my team, it's housekeeping, it's food and beverage, it's our partnerships team, it's our facilities and grounds team that these are all, ideas and objectives that they've heard and that they can help relay to their teams. They can help, emphasize with their teams, so that it's not just, myself or someone else sending out a PowerPoint or something that's like, hey, here's what we're trying to do from a waste diversion standpoint, and somebody clicks through it and then never hears about it again. But I think, it is like, my other piece of advice for that would be, if you're trying something that isn't working, feel free to just ditch it and try something else, right? Like we do that with all of our operations, be it waste diversion or housekeeping or otherwise. We're not too big, and certainly I'm not too big to realize or admit when I've come up with a bad idea. I think understanding that processes and operations can change and develop is the key to success, because eventually things that we want to do, they're not going to work, and if we just keep doing them or throw our hands up and say, well, too bad, then these things aren't ever going to improve. And so, folks that are having challenges, getting buy-in or having challenges based on their venue or things like that, I think the key is to just constantly keep pushing it forward and keep trying to adapt to find things that work, be it small or big things. It's just a matter of understanding that things are going to have to develop as you go to keep progressing towards whatever it is your objective is.
Yeah, that's certainly been my experience when I I worked with the college university side for many years, and it can feel like you are Sisyphus. You're trying to push this boulder up the hill, and you're constantly starting from the back again, and it can be discouraging if you don't have that kind of support already in place, and if you don't have that culture. But it's a building process. It's almost by definition what sustainability positions are about, is building this over time, and it can be slower than one wants, but it's satisfying to look back over time and see the progress that you haven't been able to make, and understand that wouldn't have happened without the efforts that you're putting into it. Yeah, great. Well, with that, we're at the end of our time, so I'm going to do a screen share and just pull this back up again real quick. So just to close out, I want to point out a couple things, resources that are available. As I mentioned, we will have the slides and the recording from today's program will be posted to our website in the next couple of days. But I also mentioned that we did a program last year with a similar theme on venues. For that, we had case study presentations from a number of different settings, including convention center, nightclub, theaters. So recordings and slides from those presentations are also available on our website at buschsystems.com/blog. Also point out that on my own, I have a blog series that I do called Advancing Recycling, where I touch on a lot of these topics, profile different programs, talk about some of the science around behavior. All those you can find, again, on our website. And so I encourage you to check those out. Also want to share that we're going to be live. I will be at a workshop. We're partnering with an organization, the Zero Waste Campus Council, to do a workshop in San Diego at the University of California campus coming up next month on September 6th. This is part of the CRRA conference, California Resource Recovery Association. If you happen to be in Southern California and want to stop in and talk about many of these same issues from a campus perspective, I encourage you to come. One of the things I'm looking forward to is we're going to be doing some focus grouping discussion around bin design. We on our end know what we think we know when it comes to designing bins, but we want to hear more from individuals, folks actually on the field, on what works, what doesn't, different specifications of features. So that's going to be a component of this workshop. If you are in the area, and you can learn more at crra.com. If you are working towards any sort of certification program where this program may be eligible for credits, go ahead and reach out to us. My colleague Marissa is happy to prepare just a certificate of attendance that confirms that you were part of this program. We don't have a relationship with any one certification program, but simply we can provide the background that allows them to determine if this would be eligible for that. So feel free to reach out to Marissa. And as I pointed out, we're now at the official end of the program. Again, I want to thank you, Nick, for taking the time to prepare the slides and participate today. It was great to hear from you, and good luck to Austin FC with the season and with your program going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great. So with that, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to welcome my colleague Bryan up onto the stage if he wants to turn on his camera. And
thanks, Alec.
Great. And I'll go ahead and turn off my screen share and hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks again, Alec, and thank you, Nick, for a great presentation. It was great to see some of the Busch System bins throughout that presentation, and that would have been our Evolve series here. So I've kind of just put together a small selection of products just so you guys can see what we do here at Busch Systems, and most of it will be done with the customized signage, restrictive openings, all that sort of thing in mind. Customized graphics at the front. and a small selection again, plastic bins, powder coated steel bins, outdoor bins. I apologize, there's not a lot of space here for you to see. And I also brought in, it was just given to me to show off our new Renegade. And this will be primarily an outdoor unit, but this lid is removable. So there will be similar indoor lids to the Evolve station. And the exciting thing with this bin is that it's 100% post-consumer recycled material. And it will be available in a black bin and a blue bin for waste and recycling, full openings for waste, and then restrictive openings available for the recycling. Sorry, it's out of focus a little bit. So again, small selection from Busch Systems, full capability in terms of bin customization, signage customization, labels. We're here to help and support your programs in any way that we can. And just wondering if there's any questions that I can help out today. No questions rolling in. Is Marissa still here?
I am. I don't see any questions coming in for you, Bryan. Can you tell us a little bit maybe about those tall bins in the back there?
Definitely the Spire.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not a lot of room in this room. So, but this is another series that we have. This is again, post-consumer milk crates. It's recycled plastic, lumber, and again, full customization in terms of colors, openings, signage, labels, the whole works. The unit can be customized and created and manufactured to your preference. This is just one selection. There's another unit here. There's various different options available, as well as various different stream options available.
Fantastic. And if someone did want custom signs, custom colors, that kind of thing, how do they go about doing that?
So reach out to your dedicated sales representative. We'd be more than happy to quote, to design based on your preference. We have full graphic customization opportunity within the building, whether it be design and print. So everything's done, or most everything is done in-house. And a prime example is our Expression series. Slide it back a little bit, but this unit, obviously an outdoor unit, but it has the ability, the lid can be removed, and all four sides of this bin can be customized with graphics. So we have the waste and recycling at the front, and then an event that we just put on the side. And all four sides of this could be customized to your customer's preference. So that's another example there.
Awesome, thank you. Careful. We did have a question come in for you. Is your signage weather resistant?
Again, outdoor signage is going to be outdoor. Any of our indoor signage, obviously, we don't worry about the indoor or the outdoor elements indoors. So yeah, definitely, you know, if we were to put signage on our new Renegade, it's going to be completely weather resistant for your environment.
Awesome, Bryan. Thank you.
Anything else?
I think Alec and Nick are currently in the Q&A answering the other questions from the presentation that came in. So I think that's just about it, but we're going to keep this going and keep it live here while they plug away at those questions. Okay. So is there anything else you'd like to touch on, Bryan?
Well, again, just feel free anytime to reach out to Busch Systems. We're happy to help you with all of your waste and recycling needs. We also have a PPE line as well. And again, full customization capabilities. So we're happy to work up something that will work for you.
Awesome. Thank you. What would you say is the most popular bins for venues and like large stadiums, that kind of thing?
Well, again, it depends on where you're looking. Is it going to be front house, back house? So, you know, some of the clubhouses, the Boca Station, which I have here, stainless steel, beautiful, elegant unit. We also have the Aristata series, which I left out in the hall for space. But then a lot of the, the high capacity, this is 50 gallons here. These are very popular, as you saw in Nick's presentation. The only difference with his, they put a organic stream or a smaller stream, sorry, in the middle for landfill. And then they basically have their graphics combining all 3 units, as well as a sign frame, which takes up all 3 units. These are individual sign frames on these units, whereas he had 1 sign frame, 1 graphic to communicate that end message.
Fantastic. There was a question that came in earlier in the presentation about mobile units and stations. Do you have any options there or any advice?
Definitely. So a lot of our stations have the options to add casters to them or a dolly kit. So there's definitely options available for the mobile needs. It's essentially like our Spectrum series. It's a matter of removing the stabilization feet, putting on the casters. That unit now becomes mobile.
Fantastic. And there was another question that came in here. Do you have a used battery collection line?
Not specific. That being said, we have so many restricted lid optionings. And then with the graphic customization here, we could customize a battery bin to your preference. What I've done in the past is something, sorry to go off screen again, it depends how large of a unit, whether it be, this is a little small, but something as small as a hanging wastebasket that will go on. You could do a label on there that says batteries, or something like our waste watchers where we do a custom label. You can get a lift lid on there if you don't want the exposure. And again, this could be put onto a dolly and then becomes movable, mobile. So again, lots of options for customization based on your preferences.
Awesome. Thanks so much for fishing all those samples out from the side there too, Bryan.
Lots of like right in front of me here is another one. So these guys would be great for that opportunity as well. A label on there and that's sort of a customization bin.
Fantastic. Thank you. And about the durability of these bins for, say, beer spillage and or things other than weather, but like common use, hitting them, that kind of thing. Can you speak to any specific bin durability?
Again, that's going to be based on your environment that you're in, your preference. If it's a high traffic, location where there's cart issues that could bang into the units, I obviously wouldn't suggest a powder coated steel because that could become damaged, dented, scratched, or that sort of thing. They're very durable, but in that circumstance, I probably would suggest a plastic bin. Whereas the Evolves, which are full, durable, even these look metal, but it's plastic. So I could jump on this guy and it's not going to break. In terms of beer spillage and that, again, based on your preference, some of the bins will have liners. Some of them will just have bag retention rings like this guy, the Evolve. So the bag gets put into the bin, the retention ring closes, the lid gets put on, and you don't see that bag anymore. Whereas this is blocked. The units in the back, as an example, these will have liners incorporated into them. So there's a slide out liner here. So the door gets open, the liner gets removed, serviced, and then put back in, and you're off to the races.
Great. It really sounds like whatever you're looking for, we have a solution for that.
Exactly. That's the thing. The sales reps are great. We're going to work with you. We're going to find out what environment you're in, what your overall needs are, and then we're going to fine tune that selection and give you a bunch of options. And then we work from there. And then again, if you need fine tuning in terms of your graphics and labels and that, we do all that with you.
Fantastic. I will, being on the marketing team myself, I will shout out our graphics team. They are quite talented individuals and can definitely work through whatever you're looking for.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to do one last quick call for questions. If anybody has any, please drop them in the Q&A or in the chat. Bryan's happy to answer them. So we'll just give you a couple more minutes. And other than that, I think we're good. Are there any other things you wanted to show us, Bryan? Anything off to the side there? A little bit of a surprise treat.
What could I show you? Again, we have a full selection of indoor, outdoor, a lot of the stuff, cafeteria, you know, what your needs are, we pretty well will have you covered. We have an extensive catalog that can be shared offline. If you're just shopping and browsing and want to see what we have, again, please feel free to reach out and we'll make sure that we get that information to you as soon as we can. And yeah, it's a pleasure speaking with everyone, and thanks for coming out to the webinar today.
Fantastic. Thank you again, Bryan and Nick and Alec. We're going to go ahead and end this half here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks again.
Bye.